Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Iroquois Board of Education April meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask for a motion to move to executive session. Heather, can I have a second? Bob? Okay, discussion. All in favor of moving to executive session? Anyone opposed? Okay, we're moving into executive session. We will be back at 6:30 for our budget work session. Okay, hello and welcome everyone. We're starting our 2023-2024 budget work session, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wolski and let him run the show for the next half hour.
Thank you. We did a presentation in March. We have some things updated.
Hey Paul, can you get it on the screen behind us too? It'll take a second to warm up, so go ahead.
So we'll run through our normal slides that we have where we review our Iroquois mission, vision, mission, and our considerations in the budget process. Exercising care and good judgment, managing resources, being open, doing presentations like this where we share what we do with the general public. And we're future focused, of course. We're looking not just at next year, but what's the next 5 years going to be like, and how do we handle that, make sure that we can continue to deliver things in a consistent manner for students and the community. So there's the agenda items. Our philosophy, we want to protect instructional programs against the state aid and tax levy fluctuations, and really not just fluctuations, but just not much increase in funding in those areas. We're looking at the impact of federal funding in future years. We always watch that. State aid and the tax cap does not support higher costs driven by CPI. We know CPI right now is 8%, maybe more than that. Our foundation aid increase is about 3%, as we know. There are new state mandates that come out. We always watch those because they can have a significant impact on our expenses now and in the future. We know that there's electric buses. I would call it an ununiformly funded mandate that's coming. And then state aid distribution philosophy. There are they're negotiating the state budget right now, but there are proposals to do a study on how the foundation aid formula is created and generated, and look at that and maybe make changes. So we got to watch that and be mindful of that if there are changes coming. We look at our reserves typically 2 or 3 times a year during our planning session during the summer, and then right now we kind of show same reserves that we always have. On here you see our 2 repair reserves. We're looking in this year's vote to add fund a new repair reserve. One repair reserve is obviously coming to an end. It only has $28,000 left in it, the second one from the bottom. And the other one has $461,000. At the May presentation, I'll also do a proposal to access more reserve funds because we had a condensate tank at Wales. It has to be replaced, and we have a domestic hot water tank at the middle school building that needs to be replaced as well. So I'll have a proposal. It'll use up the rest of the 2009 funds, and we'll use a little bit of the 2012 funds. So it is a good time to fund a new reserve. So I think the timing is great for that. And then some of the other reserves, very specific uses for these reserves. So we cannot access them for anything else but these uses that are listed here. The newer one that we have is the teacher retirement system. We have about $500,000 there. We probably won't put much more into that one because that's a nice, comfortable spot to be in. And if the state does change, which I foresee happening, that employee contribution rate for the teacher retirement system, right now it's 10%. We've seen 24%, 25% in the past at different times. Instead of having to, cut other things to pay for that, we can use this reserve and apply funding and not have a negative impact on our budget. This is the same slide from the last time, just showing you our history, where we've been. Obviously, our foundation aid and tax levy, that's 78% of our revenues, and we're seeing that not much has changed with those. 3% is the max that we've increased in those areas in the last 6 years or so. So that's definitely our concern going forward. And you can see we've kept our budget kind of restricted growth on our budget based on that. So not able to do all the things we'd like to do. We're just trying to keep programs in place that we've had, and it's very hard to start new things at this point. This is our tax levy limit calculation. This is the calculation provided by New York State that we plug our numbers into, and it generates our allowable tax levy increase, which is 2.84%, which is the maximum allowed with a simple 50% majority vote. Board of Education could always go above that if they wanted to, but it would require a 60% supermajority if necessary, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stay with the allowed 2.84%. And here's where that falls into place with our recent history. We've seen 2 to 3% pretty consistent numbers on that tax levy increase, and that's driven by that formula that we're provided. So when we try to estimate the tax impact, in a perfect world, if all the 6 different townships all did the same thing with their equalization rates, we'd probably see a matching 2.84% increase in the tax rates. That's not reality. All the different townships do different things with their equalization rates, so those change, and I don't have a say in how those are distributed, and we won't have that information until typically July or August. But that's just an estimate of where those tax rates would be. Now, if you equalize those tax rates and you put them all in the same level playing field, here's where the equalized tax rate is, and we've seen that number going down, which is explainable because all the property values have been going up quite a bit, and there's more property value to spread the tax levy across. It shows that the equalized rate is going down, which makes sense. You're maybe seeing your own tax bill going down, but that's what's going on relative to property values.
And that gets confusing that can be confusing for people, because you say, well, the tax rate's going down, but my taxes are going up. That's because the value of your house is going up. So you can't look at one without the other. You have to look at them in combination.
So if one township changes their equalization rate substantially, meaning that one town has much higher property value, that township will take on more of the tax spread because they now have a lot more value than they did before. So those kind of things do happen year to year, and it does happen every year that one township maybe has a larger increase than another, but then they typically reverse themselves a couple years later, and it tends to equalize itself over time. Since March, usually we have April 1st is when the state budget is due. It has not been finalized. They are doing extensions on the budget to keep government going. I don't believe there's state education funding is an issue that they're debating. I think it's other things.
Yeah, actually, I got a report yesterday at 4 o'clock. This is just from a group I'm part of, a group of superintendents, where they get reports of what's going on in the state. And it just said the State Assembly passed legislation to keep paying obligations through April 17th. So if nothing's settled by April 17th, they would either have to take action to keep paying state salaries and different obligations, or the state would stop paying for stuff. Resolving possible changes on bail reform has remained the major obstacle. Usually schools are thrown in there, but right now it's bail reform seems to be the biggest thing. There's one thing with education that's about the expansion of charter schools, but that really seems to only be in New York City. It doesn't seem to be in the rest of the state. By that, what I'm hearing is there's X amount for the whole state you can have and a certain percentage for New York City, and they're looking to increase the percentage for New York City. So the amount for New York State would stay the same, but more of them would be in New York City. So again, not really impacting us. But we expect more, my group is expecting more time to require. They don't believe it'll be done by the 17th, which would mean that the state would have to pass another extension. This year is unique because both of House School Aid, because the Senate and the Assembly are pretty much identical, along with the governor identical, that fully fund foundation aid and have a minimum of 3%, which John will talk about because we're in the category of falling into the minimum of 3%. And then, therefore, since they're all pretty much the same, we expect it to remain the same with us at 3%. They also propose increased funding for career and technical education through BOCES aid and special services, which is something we've been asking for because it hasn't changed, bless you, hasn't changed in years. And it uses a salary of $30,000, which has been there for like 30 years. So that would be a good thing. But my group is also saying it's dubious that these increases will survive even though they're in there now. They also expect there to be further increases in funding for universal pre-kindergarten. But the sum and how it's allocated is not available at this time. But we're planning on, that's one thing we think that will happen, so we're looking to have that too. Thanks, John.
Okay, so right now, we don't see any change. We are given the due minimum 3% increase. We don't see that being changed when the state budget is finalized. We developed this budget to be compliant with that 2.84% tax levy increase. But, annual minimal growth in state aid and tax levies below the cost of inflation are forecasted to put significant stressors on instructional programming. So we got to look, again, looking long-term. We have a budget that's going to solve next year, but beyond that, we've got to keep watching. So addressing that gap, we had a $1.1 million gap at the last meeting that we needed to solve. There was no new revenues to address that are going to come out. So we looked at our projected enrollment for next year. We looked at our special education expenses, and we made adjustments to all these things. BOCES expenses, transportation expenses, and building grounds expenses.
Now, with the projected enrollment, what changes are there? That's obviously staffing, because enrollment's going down, staffing changes. We're asked that question annually because people know enrollment's going down. We have made changes year after year after year. Right now, we're still working on the exact areas of what it would be, because we don't want to have anything wrong. We don't want to make it, and we're looking at different possibilities, even talking with other groups to see if there's any other ideas out there to make it the most effective, least impact we can. So as soon as we're done, I would start having those conversations as I've done in the past. They're very sad and unfortunate things. We really try to do this through retirement, but we didn't have significant retirements this year, so we've been doing that over the years through retirement. This year, we can't do it through retirement alone.
Approximately how much has the enrollment gone down, percentage-wise?
We're just looking at enrollment because we're adding UPK though. But it's what grade levels you're seeing enrollment change are typically the middle school, high school years. That's what we're seeing. The class is getting smaller.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall in my mind, because I did a presentation of this to the board maybe last year or during the district planning conference. And also the time frame. Are you talking back from the 70s to now? Or?
No, just
I know the last 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Typically, it was about 70 kids a year. I want to say with that, with the graduating classes. So the elementary levels are about 150, and that's been working its way through the district. So now it's getting up towards coming out. It's last year we did reductions in 6th grade. The year before we did them in 5th grade. And now with the way it fits through 7th and 8th grade, there'll be more in the 7th and 8th grade, 9th grade areas. I know that doesn't exactly answer the percentage or the numbers, but it gives you the idea. With these changes, again, because just because 70 kids are gone in the district doesn't mean you can change a teacher if it's a class of 20 kids or something, because of how they're put out. So you have to kind of build that mass where you can actually reduce a whole class, and then that has to also be across the board for all of them, it's hit this year. So we're doing, so it hit, and so that's why we're making the changes.
I think we have graduating classes probably in the 180 to 190. I think the last 180 plus class is leaving this year, and then it's in the 170s and 160s, and then those elementary classes around 150-ish.
And in regards to like the transportation expenses, I think that in the last month, the state said that they may slow down the electric bus rollout thing, or maybe pilot it. Do we have any more answers on if that's happening or not?
I don't have any answers if that's happening.
No information on that, no. A couple of proposals for this, the state assembly, and some of the proposals that are out there is to push off the report. They want to implement some feasibility reports that districts have to start doing next year. They're trying to push those down the road already, so that's a sign that they're trying to put out things a little bit.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens with the state budget.
In conversations, everyone says, don't worry about it, it's going to be put off, but nothing said publicly or anything about that. It's just in conversations.
So the budget we put forth for 23-24 is going to maintain the instructional programs we have, student support services, your social workers, your psychologists, guidance counselors, all those support services remain intact. Athletics, music, our extracurricular funding stays in place, school resource officers stay in place, and the one-to-one device replacement that we've been now doing consistently over a year is going to be there as well for next year. So when we look at our revenues, again, state aid, around 3%. I increased our estimate for sales tax because we've seen that just number growing in the past couple of years, probably a result of CPI going up as well. That's going to drive, sales tax to go up a little bit as well. The other sources you see is a bigger increase, and that is a capitalized interest transfer from our capital fund to support the new project that we're doing, the big project across the street and on the campuses. But that was a planned funding of that project that we were going to do, so that's a revenue coming in as a transfer from the capital fund to the general fund to support that project, as we planned to do when we put together that project originally. So the overall budget increased revenue increased 3.48%, and you'll see that the budget increase matches that, of course, because it has to. So on the expense side, we do have it included in the project, a project for $100,000 to replace electrical panel at Elma Primary to get that work done. That's aided at our building aid rate of I think 71%. So we definitely want to take advantage of that and get that money back in our hands. That'll be completed next summer, 2024. We always look at these retirement systems because they're big expense areas. But these two kind of offset the teacher retirement systems decreasing a little bit, our contribution for this year, but the employee retirement system's increasing. It's just how their funds are performing. One maybe is having a better year than the other, so if they don't meet the goals that they have for their return on investment, they increase our rates to kind of compensate for that. So one system's doing it, the other's not. Together they kind of wash, and we don't need a significant increase in those areas this year. And health insurance, a 3% increase is built into the budget, which is lower than previous years, but we're seeing pretty good performance with our self-funded program right now. So there's the expense areas, general and instructional. Transportation, we really, I think they're doing a great job over there. There's nothing what we see coming that's going to really fluctuate their expenses next year a lot. Fuel has been pretty steady on pricing, so we don't see a lot of change there. Benefits really only increasing by less than 1%. That's different for this year than previous years. And then again, our debt service fund transfer, we're going to see a little higher debt service, but that's that project that we planned on, so that makes sense there. And then if we look at these different areas, these 5 different areas, we go a little farther, you can just see a little more detail of what areas are seeing some increases. That's general support. Instructional, where we have these different areas, but you see most of the increase going regular instruction and students with disabilities instructional areas. That receives the majority of the increase.
Mm-hmm. And you got to be careful always on these graphs because the graph is the dollar amount, not the percentage. So you can see the graph for regular instruction goes up much higher than instructional development and supervision. But the percentages are different. So students with disabilities, you can quickly look at and see that's the highest percentage change. But there's a lot going on in that area, and you hear it in the news consistently.
Yeah.
John, on the graph before this one, it showed the large increase was staff support of the 89,000 and 35%. What exactly was the increase in that one?
Staff support and central, I think it's just general.
Is that where the
BOCE's built in that, but like general administrative BOCE's expenses and things like that.
Okay.
Built into that. Yeah, it just hits that area this year more than others.
It just kind of stuck out there a little bit.
Transportation, like I said, no change. Undistributed is all the different benefits, and like I said, it's not growing very much, but here's where you see the teacher's retirement system, actually the budget's going to go down slightly from the previous year, and then health insurance going up a little bit, and debt service, like I said, we plan to have a higher debt service payment to support that project that we did. There still is no tax impact on that. We didn't need to increase the tax levy for that. We have a plan with that, our payments are going to increase, but our state is going to increase to support that because it's a building project.
And you can see a large one in there too with workers' compensation, which is just workers' comp. I wish I could have
Yeah,
some
it's
special
22%, but
explanation.
it's 50,000. We had a few more claims, so it looks like a percentage big increase, but it's not unheard of. When you have a certain amount of, we are in a consortium of workers' comp school districts that all work together. But they do allocate expenses based on your claims. So if we had a bad claim year, I think we had a couple different work injuries that were expensive. So our premiums go up a little bit for a couple years because we had more expense compared to the other districts in this consortium. So some years we'll see that it's really flat. This year we happen to see an increase in that, but it'll adjust again next year. So there we see at this point we do have our revenues equaling expenses. So May 16th, we're going to have our proposition number 1 for our general fund budget. We have a proposition number 2 to buy diesel buses, not electric. But the prices of those have definitely gone up. They're probably $12,000, $14,000 more than they used to be, just with general inflation and things like that. But still much better than a electric, which I think are about $400,000 a piece right now, what they're pricing those out at. So we're going to stay with the diesel buses until we're told differently. And then we do replace a 30-passenger cutaway wheelchair bus, typically 1 per year. And that replacing 4 per year really is effectively gets us to replace our fleet every 10 or 11 or 12 years. If we do 4 a year, that kind of rotates everything through. And 10, 11 years is about the effective life of a bus in this climate, in this area.
And we do actually take the buses we're taking off and trade them in. So the proposition is always for this full amount, but we never expend this full amount or borrow it because we do have trade-ins.
Yep.
It doesn't lower it significantly, but it does lower and change it.
Yep.
And then the buses that we're taking out of service, it's not just based on 10 years, it's the condition of the bus too.
Yeah, it's actually.
Because there could be a 10-year-old bus that's in worse shape than a 12-year-old bus.
Yeah, they actually look at the service record and what is.
The repairs into
What
it.
was built on a good day and what was built on a bad day, I guess I could word it that way.
And some have just much higher mileage, even though they're the same years, some get a higher mileage, and yeah. And then Proposition 3, to fund the new repair reserve. Back at the reorganization meeting, the board does, every year, we have the board set up a new repair reserve in case we need it, just in case. This year, we want to take action on that and have the public support funding that reserve. Funding not to exceed $450,000. It will be funded with future fund balance. If we have it, we put it in there. If we don't, we don't. And that would have no tax impact because, again, it's just end-of-year fund balance that we use to fund it if we have it. And there are 2 board seats open. And the deadline for getting petitions in is this coming Monday, April 17th.
And we've had, how many people have picked?
I've given out 4 packets.
4 packets have been given out, but no one has turned in the signatures.
And again, because we're at-large voting now, you don't have to pick a seat to run for. You just put your name out there, and the highest vote getters get those 2 seats for the board.
So if nobody comes forth to take the seat, what happened? I run for the seat.
It's a write-in then, whoever's written in the most.
Okay.
So then we would contact, Dave Jones and say, hey, you were the highest write-in, congratulations. Hopefully Dave would say, yes, thank you, I'm looking forward to being on the board. They could refuse it, and then if they refuse it, the board has a certain length of time of which they have to make a decision of appointing someone or going out for another vote. If they go beyond that time, the superintendent can appoint somebody. That's our understanding of reading the law. We've never had to get to that or experience it, so if that was to happen, we would actually call the district attorney and make sure we're doing everything correctly.
Okay.
We'd be making history.
Thanks.
And we put our contacts for the state and our local representatives on here in case anybody wants to see those. And then we have our budget hearing scheduled May 9th. And this presentation is on board docs, and then we have the presentation also available on our business office website for the public to see. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
No questions, but I do want to point out that May 9th is a Tuesday. May is that unusual month where instead of having our normal board meeting on a Wednesday, we have it on Tuesday. Mark your calendars, because last year I almost missed it.
Yeah. And the reason it's switched to a Tuesday is, that's the law. It has to have so many days before the vote is where you have to have the hearing. So that's why it's May 9th, right? May 9th? Yeah. I get my dates confused.
Thank you, Mr. Wolski, for your report. Now, we have 4 minutes, 3 minutes?
Yeah, we have about 3-4 minutes.
That's just enough time for a quick potty break. We'll be back at 7 o'clock. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We did that. Welcome to all who've come to observe the meeting of the Iroquois Central School District Board of Education meeting. There are 2 periods of recognition of guests listed in the meeting agenda. The first is for comments regarding agenda items, and the second is for topics not on our agenda. Speakers can offer comments related to school operations and programs, but the board cannot hear personnel complaints against any individual associated with the school system. Please address these concerns to the appropriate administrator. If you wish to be recognized, please fill out the appropriate form and turn it in to our district clerk. As per policy 1514, public participation at board meetings, public comment by district residents is limited to 15 minutes total unless the board suspends this limit. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. Additionally, no more than 3 people may speak on a single topic unless the board also waives this limitation. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not engage in dialogue with members of the community this evening. District personnel will follow up with you regarding your concerns. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and take seriously what you have to say. Please demonstrate respect by speaking to the issues, sharing ideas and opinions, but not engaging in personal attacks. The board appreciates your willingness to share your concerns and your celebrations this evening. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be posted on the Iroquois website. And with that, I'd like to invite our Elma primary students, Juliet, Thomas, and Audrey, up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This way your parents can get your picture. The most important part of the night. Set. You gotta smile. Come on, you get closer. As we get in front. Perfect. Thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you. And I see we have Mr. Jacobs here, ready to introduce our middle school students for the student report.
Thank you very much. Our first student is Brooke.
Good evening. My name is Brooke Wojciechowski, and I am in 7th grade. I personally really liked the Megan's Law presentation. It taught me the do's and don'ts of online conversations. I learned that people that are kind and sweet online can be mean and dirty in person. People can have this item called a voice changer. If they get their hands on this, they can pretend that they are younger or older. This can cause you to believe that they are similar or your age. This can turn out really bad. This might make you want to meet them in person, and if you do, they can kidnap you or make you do horrible things. They can also make you believe things that aren't true. Keeping away from online dating is also a very important step to being safe online. If someone asks you to date them, immediately stop the conversation and tell an adult. Also, if worst case scenario, contact the police. They can track the person you were talking to and find them. Sending inappropriate pictures and messages can also be tracked on the website. If you do this, you can get in serious trouble. As well as those few problems, there are a couple ways to stop those things from happening. One way you can is refraining from sharing any personal information. Even your school's name and age can make someone get information. Second, don't play games with people you do not know, only those you do know. I really enjoyed this presentation, for it taught me a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay, our second presenter is Mairead Van Splendor.
Good evening. My name is Mairead Van Splendor, and I am in 7th grade. I would just like to start off by saying thank you so much for buying all the equipment for the archery unit in phys ed. I really enjoyed doing archery in phys ed because it was safe. I felt very safe doing it. To elaborate on that, the coaches like Mr. Slabak and Mr. DiGiacomo were very understanding for the kids who had never shot before and who did not understand. Mr. Lewis was also very helpful, and they all made it very fun. There were many safety procedures, such as if you were wearing any necklaces, you had to take them off because they could get stuck when you pulled back. Both Mr. Slabak and Mr. DiGiacomo had whistles. Each time they blew, that meant something different. Like, the first whistle meant the line was safe, 2 meant you may bring your bow to the line, 3 meant you may pull back when ready, and 4 meant you may retrieve your arrows while your partner waited at the line. And 5 meant there was an emergency, stop doing everything. I also know if there was an archery club, a lot of people would join because of how fun and safe it was. One of my favorite parts was when I was counting up how many points I got. I was usually doing very good, but when I did not do so good, one of the coaches would help me out by saying, fix your positioning and make sure you're squared. One of the best things that happened to me this year was making the girls' modified softball team. I love playing softball, and even though I've only been playing it for 2 years, I feel like I've done it my entire life. I was good friends with all the girls on my team, but now, even after a week and a half, I'm very good friends with all of them. Thank you.
Next, 5th grade, Shay Jacobs.
name is Shay Jacobs, and I'm in 5th grade. I must tell you, 5th grade has been treating me very well this year. I'm excited to share my feelings about 5th grade with you. This year, my home-based teacher is Mr. Long. He teaches, and he is awesome in so many ways. Mr. Long teaches reading, writing, and social studies. My math and science teacher is Mr. Murray, and he is also very awesome. It was challenging adjusting to this new schedule, but now I know the schedule like the back of my hand. When I first got to the middle school, the campus was 3 times the size of my primary school. My dad, Coach Jacobs, makes me feel more comfortable than a normal 5th grader because I have a family member here in the middle school. It is so easy making friends here because everyone is so kind. I was worried about making friends from different schools, but I was lucky that everyone was so respectful. Student support helped me so much by putting me in a class with people I know. But student support also helped me by putting me in a class with people I do not know, and that helped me make new friends. At first, making friends was hard. Now, making friends is easy as pie. The community of Iroquois is 2 times bigger than Marilla Primary. There is the Boys and Girls Club, the high school, and the field across the street. Everyone I come in contact with in the middle school has made me feel comfortable and welcome. FACS is amazing because it is so different than all the other specials. Same with AE, Academic Enrichment. At first, the transition from 4th to 5th grade was challenging, but throughout the year, my teachers and friends have helped me make this transition go on very smoothly. I was honored when Mr. O'Brien asked me to talk about my 5th grade experience. Iroquois has been a big part of my young life, and I thank you all for making this a wonderful place to attend to every day.
And now, Alex Piacenti.
Hello, my name is Alex Piacenti, and I am a 5th grader in Mr. Murray's home base. I am proud to present transitioning from 4th to 5th grade. Presently, my teachers are Mr. Murray and Mr. Long. Mr. Murray is my math and science teacher, and Mr. Long is my ELA and social studies teacher. In the beginning of the year, I was nervous around them, but I soon realized that they are amazing teachers. I have learned so much from them, and I am excited to continue learning with them. For example, when I was struggling with a current PowerPoint project, and Mr. Long was there for me, as always. Another example is during my math quick check, Mr. Murray helped me. As you can see, they are providing an amazing environment for me and my classmates. Currently, I have made lots of new friends. All 3 schools combined, and now I am in a bigger school with more people. Because of this, I have made so many new friends and formed close bonds with new teachers. For example, I am in chorus, and I was seated next to someone I had never met, but now we are best friends. I am very happy all 3 schools combined, and I had the opportunity to meet new people. I am very grateful that I am here at Iroquois Middle School. Another thing that has changed is the community, but in a good way. There is now a bigger variety of opportunities in the middle school, including sports, clubs, dances, etc. There are now sports fields that we can play on for gym and multiple nature trails in the woods. For example, at the beginning of the year, Miss Carlson, my gym teacher, took us on a walk in the woods, and I had a great time. Another example is when we played outside for gym and we played kickball on the softball field. I'm having a great time here at Iroquois Middle School. As you can see, transitioning from 4th to 5th grade was difficult and challenging at some times, but I'm glad it worked out. I'm very excited to continue my journey here at Iroquois Middle School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, students. I know it can be nerve-wracking to get up in front of a crowd, but I think most of the people here are your parents and your grandparents, so that's nice. But it's always difficult to get up and speak to the school board. I never would have done it at your age, and so I commend you for being brave enough to come in and talk to us and tell us about all of the wonderful things that are happening in middle school. So thank you. That brings us to item number 7, board discussion and news worth sharing. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to report from their school for their ambassador report?
Yes, I had a conversation with Ms. Morrison recently, and she wanted to express once again, her thank to the board for the school resource officers. She said that it's done a lot to make a lot of parents, teachers, and feel more confident. And she generally said that things are going very well at Wales. She's just really complimentary. So, and she invited me to a bunch of the year-end stuff that they are planning now.
Anyone else?
went to the PTO meeting at the high school, and it was excellent. I got to speak about different things that were happening that I went to regarding learning more about the vaping and weed pens or dab pens that the kids are using, and how dangerous it is, and it causes all kinds of awful side effects, like people think that it helps calm them, when it actually does the opposite. It gives them anxiety, causes vomiting, it causes paranoia, and the cigarette companies and different companies that make those products put in nicotine, which causes it to be addicting, and it can't stop, just like cigarettes did. So people are under the impression that, oh, let's get off of using cigarettes, or let's use this because it's going to calm me, when it in fact does the opposite. It makes you addicted and makes you more anxious than you were before, which we know leads to absenteeism, and kids even steal money and steal all kinds of stuff and do different things that they wouldn't normally do because now they're addicted to it. So the more information, I passed that information out to the PTO group that was there, and they were listening. It's just really hitting every place, and I know there's talk of using vaping devices and detection devices, but from what the kids were saying that were there at the meeting, that they're going into the bathrooms and it's loaded with the vaping in there, so they're afraid to go into the bathroom. So it's difficult. They said they're holding their breaths and running in the bathroom and running out because they don't want to breathe it. But it's everywhere. I see it. We went to look at a new car, and I was telling the guy there that was a salesperson about, because he has teenage children, and he's saying that everybody that worked at their place was vaping. They are not even aware of these side effects and the addictiveness of these products, of vaping and those dab pens. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, when they have these legalized marijuana places where you could buy it if you're over 21, or 21 or over, so I should say, that stuff is regulated, but these dab pens and weed pens that are being purchased at what they say now are these illegal shops, is 16 times the amount of synthetic marijuana. So it's not even real marijuana. It's synthetic, and it's 16 times as high. So these people were really listening. I spoke for about 20 minutes about this.
Okay.
They were all concerned. So I just wanted to mention
So this
that
was a presentation that you gave to the PTO?
Well, they were asked, it was brought up about vaping. Some of the girls were talking about some of their concerns about bathrooms and the use of stuff, and I said, my own experience, and then I was listening to them.
I see. Okay.
So I just wanted to reiterate
Some of those points.
some of those
Thank you.
points, and it was excellent.
What
meeting.
else was discussed at the PTO meeting?
They were just talking about different volunteer programs that were available if children were interested in volunteering. So I know the kids have to have 32 hours of volunteer programs, and they said that they could contact their guidance counselors, and that they had two young lady representing the high school, and they were talking about different volunteer opportunities and projects that they were working on to get people involved, and what types of things they could do as seniors to get more kids as far as cooperating together and more like spirit in the senior year. So it was very good, excellent.
Nice.
Glad
Thank
I
you.
went.
Thank you for your report. Anybody else? Okay, and then that brings us to ECASB updates. Did anybody attend any workshops, meetings, or events?
No, but I'd like to hear just about how that residency meeting went. Didn't you and Doug go to that, about the residency requirements?
Oh, yeah, the dinner. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I'll let you talk
Any
about it.
takeaways from that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, Louise was there too, and Heidi, who's our registrar, and Nora came along. And we went there, and it was someone who can help if you're having trouble with people coming in residencies and do investigations and hints on residencies and just some things you should have in your office, of procedures that would be in place. And really, I want to say 90-some% of what he talked about we already had. There are some few forms that we want to modify, get some more that are online or in paper copies for people. But it really showed that I highlight if we do investigate one, the importance of how you track it, how you check people. Just going there and saying, "No, I don't see what the house isn't good enough." You have to make sure, like if it's a separation, who has custody and how often they have custody, but they can be at the other house, and you have to track from both houses on the same days, and it's a large process. So I'm glad that we seem to do very well. We do question people. Our transportation department is very good about letting us know, and then we ask for further documentation. It went over the documentation that we needed. I think that's pretty much most of it. So it's nice going to those and hearing you're doing a lot of things right, but it's always nice to walk away with one or two things we can improve, and it was some of the forms that we wanted to, what we were asking for. We could have a few other things that we asked for documentation.
I also went to that, and a couple points that I wanted to bring up that I heard about is that sometimes it's costing certain districts more money, and that's why some of this comes about, is to find out where the residency is, because maybe that the district they're going to is not offering that program, so they'll get an address from a different area and be enrolled and try to get enrolled in another school that has a program that they want that's not being offered in their school district. So there's different reasons besides maybe two parents being separated and they may switch households. There's that part of it. So it's costing some districts a lot of money because of the programs aren't being offered. And that does change enrollment too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. There is a Twist on Tech event on Thursday, April 27th. It's the Get to Know Your Erie One BOCES event, where you get to go and experience the Kenton Career and Technical Center programs just the same way a student would. You'll get to do some activities, see some demonstrations, and learn what's new in that program. And that's on Thursday, April 27th. I believe the deadline for registering for that was today, but I'm pretty sure that if we sneak in at 8 o'clock in the morning, we could still get some people in if you guys wanted to go. We also have the road rally and lunch on Saturday, April 29th. And I know that the deadline for that has been extended. It was supposed to be today. So if anybody wants to go to that could be fun. We can make a team and you just travel around and you get to see some interesting sights in Buffalo and get to know some of the Buffalo schools a little bit better. And then the legislative dinner, which is a new event, is coming up on Thursday, May 11th. The guest speakers will be Senator Gallivan and Assemblyman Conrad. So if you're interested in hearing what's going on in Albany from the eyes of a legislator, that is a great dinner to attend. And again, just letting our district clerk know that you want to go so she can register us. I know there's a delegate assembly meeting coming up in May for Heather, because that's your committee. And Jim, you have a meeting coming up for legislative
Next
team
week.
meeting next week.
At the last meeting, talking about electric buses, but the big thing that I thought that was interesting was when we went to Albany, there was a lot of talk with the Child Victims Act and concerns with different districts, and Senator Gallivan did introduce legislation to help with that, it was just kind of cool to see that something came to place from all of that.
Yeah, actually, Senator Gallivan is sponsoring the companion bill to Assembly Bill, I think it's 1279, which is sponsored by Monica Wallace and William Conrad, both local regional people here. I did notice this morning, I was looking through some of the bills, and there is a downstate person who has introduced a new bill that is also related to CVA funding. So I'm not really sure where that's coming from. That's something to keep an eye on. But there's no local legislators for that. So, I'm sure we'll talk about that on Thursday. Okay.
Did you say the legislative dinner with Patrick Gallivan was going to be on the 30th?
May 11th.
May 11th.
May 11th. The annual awards dinner, I believe, is June 8th, if that's a Thursday, it would be June 8th. So mark your calendars for that as well. It would be nice for us to be able to go, and Doug will tell you why in a few minutes. And when we do get new board members, there are lots of dates for those people to know for the fiscal oversight and governance training in June. So we'll have them trained before they even join us in July. That'd be nice. All right, anyway. And then the next thing is our special BOCES meeting. It's just a reminder that we have a meeting next Wednesday, April 19th at 7:30 a.m. so we can vote on our Erie 2 BOCES board. And if there's any other additions to the agenda, that'll be put out when the agenda for this meeting comes out soon, right?
It's a budget too.
Yeah, it's a budget, BOCES.
BOCES budget.
BOCES budget too,
I
as well,
won't be
okay.
there. I won't be there.
Right,
Just so you know.
Okay. Anything else for board discussions? Does anybody have something that they want to add?
I have something that I wanted to bring up that's an idea, a thought that I learned about through a bunch of different conversations, and because it affects so many different places, I wasn't sure where it, like I would have gone and maybe talked to different people, but I'm not sure. It seems more global than that, and it really lines up with our strategic plan and our goals, so it really is about bringing the community into the schools and improving that, getting more opportunities to get people into our schools, is that there's local school districts, and maybe we've had, I do not believe we have this, but local school district that I know that has a golden pass for seniors in their center, in their school district. And the golden pass for senior citizens will give them, free admission to musicals, sporting events, different things like that. And I know quite a few people that kind of take advantage of it. I started brainstorming I know, but those are fundraising for the different groups. But I was talking to somebody who's very involved in it, and they said they get so many people that come to their theater productions, they ended up adding a night and making it senior night, and they get so many people come, and I think that's fabulous. And I can't imagine our kids not wanting to do another performance.
Definitely.
Having known some of those kids. One more, when the shows end, it's sad. Maybe it could be a Sunday afternoon or something, but she said they end up getting so many people making donations or buying the concessions and people are so grateful. I think that benefits far outweigh the.
Do you know what's the school that does this? I could talk to them about.
You know this school district. Okay.
Thought I might be
familiar with the school district. I talked to somebody very involved in it, very involved in the fundraising. They said, nope, it's a win-win for everybody.
I love
And
the
just from
idea.
all of our conversations, I feel like get more people in it. It would be so nice. And
I love
nice
the
for the
idea.
kids to see. So
Yeah,
I think our seniors would love it.
nice. Yeah, because I honestly hadn't heard of it, to be honest with you, even
Yeah.
knowing the district you're talking about.
Yes, you bet.
I guess I'm not a senior yet.
It's clearance. They do. I think it's neat.
What would we have to do to start exploring something like that?
I would just call them and ask them what they're doing, just to see what their
Can we
background is, how they do it, how they advertise
Can we have a
it.
conversation about that this summer at our summer
Yeah.
work session? Maybe
I think
implement
they
this
put
for the
it,
next school year?
For example, on the flyers for the shows, they'll put senior citizens, please use your golden pass and
I
attend
love
this
it.
event. Some football games, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't charge to go to a football game anyway, so.
Well, don't we charge $1 or something?
No, not
No,
anymore.
not anymore.
Well, sections
sectional
would,
things.
but
Yeah, they
we
might.
can't bypass the section.
Okay.
We don't,
Yeah,
wish we could.
But
yeah, I love that. That's great.
We had
Thank you.
daughters last time that
it
did it.
really is mostly musicals and things like that.
Yeah, musicals,
Sometimes it's just the invitation.
right.
You
Yeah.
know, say, please come to the
Yeah.
art show, please come to this. Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see us talk a little bit more about a program like that this summer and maybe
Yeah,
build
find
one.
out about it.
I'm already brainstorming ideas. I got thoughts. Okay. Anything else? Okay, that brings us to the superintendent report.
Response to last month's public comments. So we did have a gentleman come in and he asked, want to make sure the board was aware of the disc and the shot put across the road. The district I was aware of it ahead of time. The track coach, Rick Dombrowski, has been working with the section because if you look at it, you go out 160 feet, it goes up, if you take where you throw out 160 feet, it goes up 4 feet. When you look at other districts, I'll pick one a little to the southwest of us, they go up 2 feet. When we look at all the regulations and stuff for it, there's nothing wrong with our field whatsoever. It's very vague in any of the regulations about disc throwing. And so with that, there's a gentleman named Walt who's in charge of the track, and he will be here Friday to talk to Rick, and he's like, well, I don't like it. Well, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not legal and appropriate. So we're going to have that discussion, and if you stand on the road and look at it, because you're out a lot further than 160 feet, there's a whole different perspective from there. So Rick's been doing a great job working on this, keeping everyone informed. Additionally, there was a talk of needing stone or something at the shot put. According to the gentleman, Walt, no, that's not a requirement, that's not needed. So where are we with that? Well, I want to know what's going on with the disc before we talk about doing any other expenses over there for doing that. Part of the problem too is it being so new, it's muddy and it's wet in the spring, so therefore the shot can hit in the ground. It's a mixed blessing because you have to dig it out, you get muddy, but you also get a great mark of where the shot landed. I was a track coach, I did the field events, and it was a mixed blessing. You don't want that, so what are we going to do? How are we going to make that better? Over time, it'll get better as grass fills in, but we still might change it, do something different, but we need to know where the section is on this, and the biggest change or anything would be the disc, so we need to know where that is. And I really don't want to go out there 200 feet and have a 3-foot wall going up or a 4-foot wall to have the pitch differently. I don't want to spend any money if we don't have to. So that's where we are with that. I did talk to him and fill him in on that feedback of everything. And he was over there throwing, I believe, with his daughter. So I did see him over there the day later. He did talk about water being in there, so I looked at the drains there. It's not something he talked about. And they were plugged with dirt. Actually, I was able to take just a rubber straw and put them in there, and they all started draining, but I still did talk to the coach I talked to the athletic director who's going to work to make sure our grounds department is checking those every spring to make sure over the winter they don't get plugged and they're draining appropriately. He also did, speaking of across the field, we did get a call, they didn't come to the meeting, about lights on behind the bleachers. Last fall, I actually myself went over and flipped a fuse to turn them off because they really don't need to be on all the time. I think someone was in there working on the fuse box trying to get things up and running again for the spring. They flicked that fuse back on. I mean, it can be on during games and events, so the kids aren't back there, it's safe, but it should be turned off. Well, they didn't turn it off. So the neighbor called and let us know. Immediately I talked to Dave. He's going to mark it to make sure that that doesn't happen, and we're going to do our best because it doesn't need to be on. The other thing was we did get a call from a gentleman whose mother lives on Woodard. There was a girls' lacrosse game and a boys' lacrosse game following it, and he said he felt the music was too loud and everything between that and music playing after the game. We do play, I think it's Sweet Home Alabama or something like that. Caroline, sorry, at the end of the game. And it's kind of when the kids run back and forth, but that's the only song we play at the end. We're not playing music a lot at the game. I did talk with the people, Ms. Russin, who does the booth a lot, make sure it's not anything different than we did in the fall with football. Unfortunately, the speakers do face that way, so sound does travel that way, but we had gone over there because I think there's a happy balance between what is said. I was there for the girls' game. It seemed what it was during the fall and everything, which as a neighbor, you're definitely going to hear it, but on the same token, we have to be, what's that? There is no ordinance really for it that I know of. We're well within it, and in fact, actually, we have the main speaker doesn't go above 30%, the main switch, and then there's a secondary switch after that, which Ann actually has a line drawn on it, you're not supposed to go above. But sometimes, depending on the phone they're coming off of for the music, how it connects is a little different. But she said she would take care of that and monitor it, apologize, but
Does it have anything to do with the fact that in the fall you still have leaves on the trees?
it could be with some leaves on the trees and things like that, but where we really want to be good neighbors, but on the same token, there's a give and take. I mean, like cheering of a crowd is, the more you win, the louder the cheering is going to be.
Right.
So just to let the board know, it was the one call, and there's been no follow-up calls from, we did get back to them. They were appreciative of that, but there have been no other calls, and there's been multiple games since that. The gentleman who came in also spoke about an economics program that he, is looking to have in the program. We did receive that material. Dr. Dudick looked into that, talked to the people, and there's parts of it they like and use, and there's other parts of it that they're not using. They don't want it. As always, we always look for feedback, but ultimately the teachers get to decide what curriculum is in there and how they teach it. So it varied on what level and everything they were doing and using that program. Any questions on last month's comments or anything? New York State Education Department Indigenous Native American mascot regulations. So we're still in that listen and learn period. I have reached out to the Native Americans. They, they've been very busy and unable to get back to me at this point. With the regulations, they are out for comment by New York State. And remember, this is driven by New York State for changing chiefs and the Native American male mascot. So New York State put forth the regulations. They're out for their comment period. I believe, I haven't seen the agenda yet for the Board of Regents for New York State, that it will be on their meeting this month on the 17th and 18th. If not, it'll definitely be on in May. Without anything in place, we will be forced to change by New York State. It's a New York State regulation. We have to follow it. And I gotta say, people in Iroquois feel very proud of what we've had, and rightfully so, and I think we really tried to treat it honorably and respectfully. But I also think overwhelmingly people understand that we also have to be respectful of other individuals too. And even if we don't want to change, they respect there might be a need to change. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. So in trying to prepare it, we don't have to change at the end of this year. That's a misnomer. Everyone says, oh, you have to change by the end of this year. No. What we have to have in place by June 30th is a resolution adopted by the board that we're committed to change by June 30th of 2025. I think waiting until 2025 is a long time. I think we can change by the end of 2024, because I think if the regulation gets put in place and we're required by the state to change, that can be accomplished of doing all the collaboration within the district to change. That could take place, and we could do standing the floors or whatever else we have to do during the summer of 24, starting with the 24-25 school year. I did, at a meeting, I think I told this to the board before, I presented what I thought was a good timeline to them, and they agreed at that meeting. Doesn't mean they'll change their mind. But, so in just trying to prepare for it, just so you know, there would be a resolution, probably in June, I would put in front of the board that would show the board is committed to changing. And then at the district planning conference, there would be a presentation of the plan to do it. Already started looking at it with my student cabinet, because I don't think one person should make it. I think it should be a collaborative approach. We actually came up with 4 different groups, depending on what group. I'm not going to go into it now because we're still working on it. There's a group, the 4 groups would be used at different spots. One of the spots would be coming up with ideas. One of the spots would be who gets to vote on it. Another spot would be designing the logo. Should there be a second vote? Who would be involved in the second vote if we have to have a second vote? Then we talked about things like the colors. Should the colors change? Should they stay the same? Just to give you a little hint, they felt the colors should stay the same. And so these things we used to go into what we thought were non-negotiables. So the non-negotiables were, if you're submitting an idea, here are things that it has to be appropriate. You know, you can't come up with something that's inappropriate, and it has to work. The colors would be there. You'd have to make sure you gave a nickname and a sample of it. They also thought something important for non-negotiables at this point is they don't want to duplicate anything else in Western New York. Originally, they said no duplicates, and I said, well, does that mean the world? And so we kind of chuckled, and they said no, and we talked about it, and they said, well, in Western New York, which I think is very possible and plausible. I did explain to them that ultimately I would be presenting these ideas to the board, and the board would have say in this, that it's not our, my stamp on this. In the process, we were talking about how long the ideas, who would review them, then a committee to reduce them to a certain number, because we talked about if it was open to everyone in the community, we could get thousands of ideas. Or are we going to have people vote on thousands of ideas? I mean, there's no way you can do that. Then they talked about how there could be duplicate ideas. So if there's duplicates, we could take all those and group them if, they all wanted to be, the telephones. I don't know, that wasn't one of them, but it's in front of me. It would be a duplicate, everyone gets a phone. And so therefore we can narrow it down to a certain number. We have an idea of what the number should be. Then there would be a vote, they think, to get to a certain number, and a second vote to pick it out. Why? Because you might change your mind from the first group to the second group based on what's left. We talked, it was a great lesson in civics, maybe Dr. Dudek or Dave should have been there for social studies we talk about states, how some states you have to have a 50% majority to be elected. Other states it's just who gets the most numbers to be elected into offices, and how would this work in here. We did not get to talk about the timeline. We were starting with that, with if students were involved, should we start it over the summer or start in September, where students are back in school and they're going to be more aware of what's going on. So that's where we'll be picking up. But that's my student cabinet report along with Native American things. But any questions on that? It was a lot, all that quick. And really, it's just about what we have to do as a board, not about what I'm working on at the student cabinet, because we're not done.
So the committed to change by June 2025, is that?
No, committed to change by June 30th of 2023. The change has to take place by June 30th of 25.
So what does that mean?
We're going to have a process that'll make sure it's done by June 30th, 2025. Or that will develop a process.
So done means the mascot's completely gone?
No, we would still be using it for the 23-24 school year.
Okay.
Or whatever our timeline is.
Okay.
No, as of that date, it wouldn't be gone. The 2025, it would definitely be gone by 2025. We have to have
So
it.
it's not a phase thing, so by June 30th, 2025, the mascot is completely gone?
Yes, the current one.
Okay.
What I'm getting from what you just said is that by June 30th of this year, so
Right.
in a couple of months, the board has to vote on a resolution to commit to a change, but we don't have to make the change yet.
Correct.
And what you're thinking is that by the 2024-2025 school year, we will be using a new mascot and logo if we're making a change.
Yeah, that's my
So
goal.
that
It
the
might change
students
depending
this
on the
year
plans. Yes,
will graduate as chiefs.
yes,
The students next year will graduate as chiefs.
Yes.
And our sophomores become the new,
yes, correct.
yes, okay.
Yeah. That's a good way, that's it.
Okay. And I mean, I think that, if a change is made, what I keep hearing from the community is when, what's it gonna be, how's it gonna be? And I think that this kind of will give them some idea. We will know next month
Correct.
if we're gonna be making a change or not.
Yes,
And in June, the board will vote on the resolution.
that we're committed to making the
That
change,
we're
so we
committed
follow
to
the
it.
state law.
And then
Not making the change yet,
starting
just committed to doing it.
starting over the summer, you'll start talking to the board about what that looks like based
plan.
on, based on what you've discussed with your student cabinet. So
Yes.
it's definitely involving students. The students are wanting to involve the community.
Yes, that was one of the groups. That was group number 2.
That's the stuff that you didn't want to talk
That's the
about
stuff I
yet.
didn't want to
Okay,
say, but
sorry.
community is involved.
Sorry, but the community will be involved.
Yes, and they felt very strongly with that, which was nice.
And really, the majority of the work will start in September when students are back to school. And we'll spend the 2023-2024 school year making the decisions so that they can start to be implemented the following year.
I don't want to say yes to what you said, we'll start in September, because we don't have the timeline
Okay.
done yet. I think personally that makes the most sense, because
Okay.
that's when people are back from any summer vacations, they're more involved, they're looking to more news from the school. It just seems it'd be a lot easier to communicate than over the summer.
Can I just, I know everybody here knows that, but just clarify for people. The board is voting in June, not on this idea. The board is voting whether we're going to follow the state law.
Yes,
Correct.
that's it. That's a good way to
So,
say it, too.
That's a different decision.
Yeah.
So just clarifying that.
Yes.
Yes.
And just to clarify also that if we don't vote to follow the state regulation, we lose our funding, and we all lose our board seats, and we lose the superintendent. So
Yes, that is
we
correct.
really have no choice.
Okay.
From my perspective,
So I can't see anybody voting no,
Yeah.
because that
I'm over
means-
55 with 30 years in, so I don't know what I would do, but it'd be interesting.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear
Someone needs their lawn mowed, give me a call.
that I don't think we're going to be voting against this, because
No.
it would make no sense. Okay, thank you.
And the current dollar amount is still approximately, was it
When you
500,000?
say the current dollar amount, you need to make the
it's
changes.
500 I just want to get out, it's about $500,000 to change chief and mascot, yes.
And the state is still not giving us any money
State
to
is
do
not
that.
giving us any money for that.
Okay, I know we're kind of like stating.
There
the
are
obvious,
things
but
like if we
it's
had a building project, we could work it into building aid or something like that. But really, our biggest cost of that is the uniforms. And so that's why we're already, already talked to people that are involved in purchasing uniforms about, let's get things that do not have any Native American imagery or anything on it, because it's smart.
So,
Start-
Are there
yeah.
uniforms that are scheduled to be purchased in this time frame that we would actually put off? Like, are we changing our timeline for purchasing?
No, I
things?
don't want to change your time, and see John going, no, because you can do things like, I was talking to some of the people on track. Their uniforms have like an eye on it with the wings of,
No,
well,
the
no,
Greek-
the wings,
the
I'm trying to
Greek-
think of the one
Greek
Greek
guy.
god.
Pegasus.
Yeah, Pegasus, things like that. So therefore, there are things like that we could
I'm
order.
looking at my social studies teacher.
But we would stay away from feathers and those things. And there's other uniforms where you would look at where the shorts are red, but the shirts you might need to get. So we might buy more shorts, but don't do anything with the shirts. So 2 teams would get shorts when there was only slated for 1 team getting the full uniform.
All right, so you've got that kind of thought process going.
John's working on it with AD.
Change them all over once, when they're all gonna go bad at once, and you're gonna have big problems. Like, we have to do that replacement every couple of years.
Just like the buses.
Yeah.
I was trying to think though, who has the actual logo, the chief logo on? Because, I mean, come to mind, I can only think of 2 teams.
I think we've tried to stop from doing that, right?
Yeah.
There's
But like
not
the
many left.
cheerleaders, you have to look at it too, because you can't have feathers or anything. And so like, I know the cheerleaders on their skirts have a Native American head. So could you get the same skirts, or could you just get new skirts, or would you have to change the whole uniform? And those are the things that have to be looked at. I'm trying to think of another, I think, lacrosse, I think, has something on it. Right, but they usually get the boosters help out significantly
And
with that.
The varsity team, the parents and the boosters do, so Rob and I already talked about this year that we're not, even though we're not gonna have any on the varsity team. And then I think modified in JV will probably need uniforms, so they do have the chief on them.
So, and it's just trying to be as smart as we can be with any purchase we have. Moving to capital project update. The biggest thing that's been going on over the past few months is having an electrical contractor get on board for the one that went defunct. O'Connell Electric, thank you very much to them. They will be coming on board. We did have a kickoff meeting the 11th with them, and they're going to start in about 2 weeks. They just got to get some more bonding in place, so for me, that's a huge sigh of relief to have a contractor in here that can do work. At the same time, too, because Day Automation fell under the old contractor, went defunct, we were able to move them out from the electrical contractors. So we're directly dealing with them now through this whole process. Had a kickoff meeting with them April 12th, and they're going to start as soon as possible. They just, it might be tomorrow night. I don't think it's tonight. We had the meeting this morning, but it might even be tomorrow night. And they think they should get the whole campus programmed within 2 weeks of where we wanted it 5 months ago. It seems it's been going on that long with the electrical contractor.
And there should be no cost, there's no cost impact on the project.
Correct.
This has covered the bonding company that, is there for when a company does go bankrupt. They take on the liability of that, and they have to pay the new contractors replacing them, and they have to stick to all the work that we specified at the start of the project. And if it goes over that, then the bonding company pays for that, not us.
So there was no district loss, the bonding company covered that.
Right.
Correct. The only thing we're looking at, and we're working on having the bonding company cover it, would be legal fees and having to go through this and the new contracts and everything. So we're going to attempt to get the contract, the bonding company to take care of this. We'll see what happens there. Next thing I have is exit poll survey. We talked about that last time, so I was actually, wish I could have got to this to you sooner. I'll keep one, and one for you and one for me. So really what I did is, we did have one consideration talking about electric buses, and then we talked about the concern of how that's worded. I didn't get any other ideas from board members of what they wanted us on here. So really, all the questions are the same, except for the bottom one on the front page, because that gives us all consistent information. So I brought that forward to the board so they could look at it under their consideration. Do they want to keep this question a different question, and do they want to tweak it? I really tried to follow what the board said. I'm not saying we're asking if you want to do this or not do it. It's New York State is considering requiring school districts to implement all school buses. I say considering because there always seems to be changing of where they're going with this, as we talked about earlier. The board is interested in how you feel about New York State's requiring the implementation of electric buses. Would you be in favor of school implementing electric buses? Yes, no, no opinion, or maybe that question should be worded a little different, or a whole new different question on this. That was the only one I received from the board.
I do not like that question on there. I don't like it on there for the same reason that when we were explaining what we're gonna be voting on in June, we're gonna be voting on something that is a state law. This is a state mandate.
Right.
We've oftentimes in the past had people come frustrated and upset to the board about state mandates, which we don't make. And I understand that this is in my opinion, this is a hot button topic that has a lot of politics
It's a hot button.
surrounding it, and asking people their opinion it's not going to. The purpose of this survey is to inform the decisions that we make that are within our control,
Right.
and our priorities for spending. What am I going to learn from seeing this? If people say they're in favor of it,
Doesn't really.
okay, you're in favor of a mandate. If they say they're not in favor
They're
of
not
it,
in favor of a mandate.
you're not in favor of it. If people are not in favor of it, I absolutely take it to the place where it should go, which is to your legislators.
Correct.
And share that information with them to change the mandate, not here. This line has been blurred over and over again by New York State to put the burden onto the schools to take the heat for the decisions that are made, and it's not our decision. So even bringing it up, the other thing is, we've always had like any other thing you'd like to say. Write about that. If people want to write about that, they're going to anyway. That's fine.
And I think you make a great point, because if we don't have any burning question we have to ask, do we have to ask one, or is it just the question on the back is really what we need? Please give one suggestion of what like to see implemented. I mean, if we used to ask about the SROs. I'm trying to think of other ones we asked over the years, and we were able to take actions on those, like Sharon is saying.
Yeah.
But this is one we're locked into.
Go ahead, Jim.
The only thing I would say is that I do agree it is a hot button issue. The difference is that our taxpayers are going to have to pay for it. And when we were sitting even in something Conrad's office, he said if it's the type of thing where, there's 95% of your community were against it and did not want to pay for it, it's stuff they want to know because they're still not sure what they're going to do with
Then
it.
they should go to their legislators.
But it's going to be our taxpayers paying for it.
But our taxpayers are paid for all of the mandates from the state. We can't pick and choose this one.
We'd still want to hear what they think about it.
I
would like to think
I
about
don't
it.
think it belongs on there based on the way that we've used this historically. You're completely changing the purpose of this in my mind. And there's going to be nothing but divisive. It makes me mad reading the question.
I don't agree, because as a school board we have to advocate for what our district needs. And you're talking about a major financial burden that is unmandated. And if we can go to our legislators as a school board, and if ECSB can advocate as an organization, and NISBA can advocate as an organization, because our community has come to us and said, we don't support this, and we can then go to them and...
Why would they come to us now? I disagree. I disagree every time we bring it up.
Who would
I disagree.
come to
I
us
sat
now?
here tonight and watched people laughing about electric school buses. We have not had to have a conversation about our feelings about electric school buses. People have asked us very prematurely. I have never been asked my opinion about electric school buses. I have never had to take action and vote on electric school buses. And I find it a political comment to laugh about electric school buses here when you're right, we advocate for our community. We don't even know each other's opinions.
We need to know what our community thinks about the issue then.
I understand.
Because we're making
And give them the
assumptions that our
opportunity to
community wouldn't
comment.
support that. We
We
need
have
to know.
never done this before. I think it's stacking the survey, and I disagree. And it is very reflective. It's very reflective of having an opinion as a board, in my opinion. And I don't like it.
This does not say that the board has an opinion one way or another. It's asking the community,
Don't even know the details about it.
it's asking the community what their thoughts are, so we know how to advocate when we go to Albany. When the legislators, it's already a law. We're trying to determine, can our district afford this? Can we advocate for a change in the timeline?
I think we make all of those same questions over and over. This is asking your opinion about New York State's decision. This is saying, what is your opinion of Kathy Hochul saying we need electric school buses? I just don't think it has a place here. I do not agree. We have never had a loaded question, and this is the first time we're doing it. So I'm going to continue to disagree. It's up to the board. I'm going to continue to disagree.
I agree with Sharon that it probably shouldn't be on here, because it wasn't what's the aim of even the answer to this question? Like, what is the aim? We have to do it regardless. We have to figure out the time frame of doing it, but if this has always been about kind of like the voting and what we're voting on currently.
Or what we want to implement in the future.
On how we can communicate better about the vote, about the budget, whatever else, the question kind of stands out a little bit to me as well.
I mean, the only difference is doing it regardless isn't set yet. They're still talking about it, or the
Yeah.
timetable. And when we're at the legislative committee, all the districts are having this conversation. And because they're getting feedback from their community because of the cost. We're asking every taxpayer to spend double on money.
I know, but we aren't asking them, the state's asking.
But they put it in our lap.
I know, but, I mean, if this has purely been about the vote, the budget, and how we communicate, maybe it's not appropriate, or maybe we reword it somehow. Or
I mean, if you
drop it
put an
altogether.
other thing on there and you say, please feel free to comment on, and you could even put, some state mandates or,
Mascot.
mascots, buses, feel
Yeah.
free to comment. You're never gonna be able to use this survey as a data point to say, 700 people filled out our survey, 698 of them said they don't want electric school buses. Because you're not talking about, like, say that it's 98%. 98% of our school district don't disagree with electric school buses. 98% of the people who came to vote. We don't know if everybody fills out more than one survey. We have no regulation on these, and we've had that issue in the past. So I'm not accusing people of stuffing ballots, but we don't have a control on this to make it a statistical piece of data. The way that people get the data to legislators is you do it, you talk to them, you advocate, you write the letters.
So maybe on the last question, just extending that to say, feel free to comment here about mascot or buses or, examples of things, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. You could say, number, after the numbers, actually probably before, probably right at the end, you could just say,
Any other
please
feedback?
use this space to make a comment on any other topic you wish. I'm not saying that's the answer, because we have two people saying one thing, two saying the other, and, hi, Bob.
Tiebreaker.
Good thing Chuck isn't here.
He just texted me.
Did he?
Did she leave?
No, I think she was.
Okay.
So when do we have to have like the survey finalized? Do we have some time?
We could do it on May 9th at the budget hearing. We could look at it again, because we just print them off in-house.
Okay.
I just,
I think we could be,
but,
we're grown up enough to be able to settle this issue
but
tonight.
I think it's going to be the same thing tonight. It'd be nice to have it done. So really, there's a couple things out there. What I hear is just take off the electric bus, leave it off, and leave it how it is. Take off electric bus and add at the end, please use this space to make a comment on any other topic. Whoops, that's a period, not a question mark. Or leave it as is. So I see three things we've talked about.
It could be interesting to take it off, add the item at the end, and see how many people actually paid attention to our discussion tonight by whether they put it on the. I don't object to that. Take it off.
So I guess what I'm hearing,
Not much gets an emotional response out of me like that. At a board meeting. So that's, for me, I'm going, it makes me upset. And if it's making me upset, it's gonna make other people, there's a chance it's gonna make other people upset too. Because I'm pretty much even keeled about stuff like this. So that's what I don't want to happen.
so how many, go ahead.
I was gonna say, sitting back and thinking through and processing what Sharon has said, I get what she's talking about in how it is a politically charged question. It is something that is historically not what we put on the exit survey. I agree with her in that regard. I would like to know what people think about electric buses and the idea that the state is pushing a mandate on us where, we're gonna go from spending, a little over $100,000 a bus to $400,000 a bus. That bothers me, and I'd like to know that there are people out there, that would say, hey, it's okay, don't worry about that, Jane, because we are going to vote yes when it comes time to have to vote for those electric buses. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that reassurance that the community is behind the school board in understanding that this is going to be a major expense, and we're going to have to come up with that. And if they're not behind that, I need to know that, so I can go to my legislator and say, look, this is what's going to happen. You're going to put this mandate on us, and my residents are not going to say yes to this resolution, so you've got to come up with a way to help me pay for it.
And have a work session on electric buses, or once we have more information, once we have kind of more the parameters, once we have, to put it out there just like this is no information it's not what you just said.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not you saying, well, when they mandate it, what I'm hearing you say too, and I think we need this answer from New York State is, what happens when we have to pay $500,000 for a bus, $400,000 for a bus,
Yeah.
and the community has to vote on buses and they say no, then what are we gonna do? Like, those are real questions we don't have any answers to. This doesn't say enough of that to me, so that was only my concept. Sorry.
So, Jim, you were the other person who vocalized being.
I agree it's a political question. It doesn't necessarily bother me. I think it's that important of an issue. So somehow, before we get to the point that people vote no, I think there's got to be a method that we at least talk, engage, and inform the community that this is going to come down the pipe. How do you feel about it? If this isn't the proper way, it's something that we absolutely have to do, because I just think it's going to be shocking and affect a lot of people when we need $5 million this year for buses. And so far, New York State's been very clear that they're not going to pay for them.
I mean, we typically replace 4 buses in a year. So you're talking about a schedule of 4 buses times $400,000. That is a sizable
And maybe there's
ask.
something too, that as we getting more information and separate from a budget vote too, we invite people in to learn everything we know about electric buses. And if people want to form advocacy groups, and this is our opportunity to say, let's work with Iroquois BOCES, let's advocate for this, because we hear you, there's hundreds of people here say that they don't want this and it's too much money. Then we say, okay, now let's work together and advocate for that as a group. It's not the issue of whether our community agrees with it or not that's upsetting. It's, I'm really nervous by that. Sorry.
And John did do a presentation about buses and costs between districts of what would be unequitable with that last month. But we could do more of that. I do my Monday message. We could put the Survey Monkey out later, next year when the state does more already. John was talking about with the timeline changing in reports. So we don't even know the cost of infrastructure in our area here, and whether they can handle it, whether our lines can handle it. I have not talked to anyone who said they were in favor of it. So, in terms of getting feedback, you can still talk to us, citizens going around, games, things like that, and, comment to, the legislator could be 100% of the people I've talked to are not in favor of it. I don't think, anyone in the audience here is in favor of it right now. So would people want to just take it off, or would we want to take it off? Again, I'm not trying to push the board anyway, it's your discussion, but just take it off and add, please use this space to make a comment on any other topic.
And if people who are listening,
It'll be written down.
want to weigh in, they can do it there.
They can do it there.
And they know what we're asking for, because they listen
If they
tonight.
listen, yeah.
Okay. I'm
So is
okay
that what
with
we're, Louise?
I agree with what Sharon's saying too, to take it off, because there's really nothing we can do. If it's just like the mascot, it's a state regulation, I'm not sure that we really have a say in it. We have to abide by it somehow and find a way to somehow fund it, I guess.
And I think our intents are all the same. We all want people's opinions so we can continue to advocate for it. It's just whether this is the right vehicle, and I think that.
Yeah, it's not that we don't want opinions,
Right.
is this the right
It's
vehicle?
not that I don't want opinions.
Could I offer a suggestion on another point on the main source of how you got your information? Did you want to put in the new communication system as a choice?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good one.
The new communication system. All right.
It does say something about the budget newsletter. When will people expect to see that in their mailboxes?
Shortly
Sorry.
after the budget hearing, I think.
Typically the beginning of May.
Yeah.
Right after the budget hearing?
It'll be typically right before the budget hearing.
Right before the budget hearing. So, okay.
Because again, there's timelines, because there's a public notice in there that has to stay within a certain window.
And if somebody doesn't receive one and they think that, hey,
It's online.
it's online.
It's online.
You can find it online, folks.
And let us know if you don't receive it, and you should, because we have a mailing address, and we're always modifying, updating, and trying to work with the post office. And people get them for 10 years, 1 year they don't get them, and they get them for the next 10 years. I don't know why.
If we remove it and just add that extra one for any, extra comments, is it something that then into the future we look at having an informational meeting with the community about this topic?
Okay. I think we're going to have to.
I like Sharon's idea of doing a workshop where the public is invited to the workshop to hear all of the issues and.
Or a round table about it, or whatever you want to,
Right, yeah.
because I just think it's that big of an issue that people at least should know about it.
Well, I
Yeah.
do too. I think that's how you get people to buy in. Buy into the decisions we're going to have to make about following the law or not, right? It's going to be in the same place again.
Yeah, be in the same place.
Advocating during the advocacy time.
or if it's something that for whatever reason you are concerned about the cost of it, now it's time to start writing your assemblyman, your legislatures.
Or if you're in full favor of support, right, you advocate for that opinion too. So like just teaching people how to advocate, not what to advocate, and let people do that together if they want to.
We're good? That's
I'm
settled?
good.
All right,
Okay, I suppose,
strategic plan.
strategic plan. John will update us on the facilities meetings that are happening.
So Facilities Committee has met twice. It's a really big group. We had 25 to 30 people who volunteered to participate with that group. So we've met twice. We've gone through the primary buildings and middle school. We kind of are going through all the different ideas for changes in those buildings. We're going to hopefully come up with a priority list on each of those buildings as well that the committee will kind of prioritize and vote on, and kind of come up with a list that we can ultimately give the board a list of priorities for these school buildings. So participation is great. We have very diverse group of parents and teachers, administrators. We have people who are in the different trades and have building construction management backgrounds. So it's been great discussions we've had, and we have 2 more meetings scheduled starting next week.
I have a question. How does that fit into our building
Condition survey?
Yes.
So the building condition survey is done every 5 years. That's coming up this coming 23-24 school year. But that's really looking at the guts of a building, the heating systems, roofs, stuff that's not very glamorous, but that has to be done. And they'll come up with a 5-year and 10-year plan and prioritize those things. But we're trying to look at the things that we need in the buildings as far as classroom layouts and music programs and art programs. What do we really want? What's on our wish list, the real wish list of things that we want in the future, and kind of put those on, because the building condition survey does not capture those things.
But then the building condition survey will be enmeshed with that, so that all can be prioritized, so you're not doing the things you want but not taking care of the infrastructure. And then that will be presented to the board.
And I'm assuming that the committee understands that aspect.
Yep, we've explained that to them, yep.
I just have a quick question. At one point, we were asked for ideas for capital projects, and I know it was mentioned amongst some conversations amongst us at one time that our swimming area is kind of limited as far as a lot of things, as far as amount of lanes, spectators. So I'm not sure that fits in the condition.
It'll be discussed by the Facilities Committee. That definitely will be discussed by them in the coming meetings that we have. We will definitely touch on that one.
Excellent. Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't forgotten about.
Yep, but the athletics and stuff will come later, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll definitely be discussed more in-depthly.
Yeah, it was brought up at the first meeting, but it's categorized, and they started with the elementary buildings, and athletics will be in the future meetings when they're talking about it.
Yep.
I just have a quick question. I just said you should turn off my mic. No, you're like looking at me like, what?
Tried, it didn't work.
Sorry. No, I just have a question. When you're doing that, is your goal sort of like, this is our ultimate wish list? Or is your goal more saying, do you guys know how much a swimming pool costs? Like, is that any part of it?
We're not trying to shoot down ideas just based on money, because things change over time. So we'd like to get this wish list of things. We're kind of sprinkling the feasibility of certain things and what we have to work with constraints-wise with our building aid and all the kind of things like that. But we're not making that the limit of things. We want to kind of open it up and just say, if things change in 5 years and there is funding for things, what do we want done?
Okay, great.
And then also having locations of where they're going to go, so if you plan on doing X, you don't put Y there, you have to take Y out, because then X would go there.
Right, okay.
And one of the other reasons why I brought that up again is that because I know we've talked about reduction in the students, and maybe why some kids or parents want their children to go to other school districts is now you've got a kid who's fantastic swimmer or diver or fantastic in that area, wants to get into it because maybe other people that they know are doing it, but now they're like, well, take a look at our pool, it's really limited as to what they can really do and how much.
Correct.
So I don't want to bring that up, that maybe possibly that could increase enrollment if we had, like we did with the field, now we've got a turf field, and we can bring more people here, it's upgraded, it's modern, it's something we can be proud of. Now, if we had a better pool area that was up to snuff, or where we could do the competitions and we were better prepared for those types of activities and able to host them, maybe that would encourage enrollment. I'm not sure, but all these little things do make a difference as far as kids wanting to be involved in sports too. And we know sports makes a huge difference in achievement for graduation and everything else, so thank you.
Yep. And I think what you said there could be for instructional programs, teaching methods, classroom sizes, and that's exactly what they're looking at, all of that in all areas, not just athletics, it's instructional too, because, you know, let's face it, you go to school, it's for instruction. Anything else with facilities, John? And then Dr. Dudek has been working on getting the survey that we talked about with PLC for June. I think you're doing well with that from everything I see.
I believe all the contracts are in place. I'm going to touch base with them this week to see about the timeline. I had originally said end of May, early June. Is there any change in that from you guys? Okay.
Okay. Stay right with you, Dr. Dudek.
Great.
Go ahead, Mary Jo. Curriculum update.
So it is unbelievably hard to believe that it is halfway through April. And we're only about 2.5 months left in the school year. In that time, we will start having our AP assessments, our Regents assessments, and new this year, our 3rd and 4th grade students will be participating in the new science investigations. And those will be done in the first couple weeks of May. So teachers have been trained, materials have been ordered, and we're excited to see how it goes. The teachers did, after the training, did comment that our new mystery science program that was adopted last year is really helping just what they believe will be a smoother transition to doing those investigations, because what mystery science is a series of investigations in and of itself. So we're looking at that, we're looking forward to that. As far as my part of the strategic plan, MTSS will play a large portion of work in the summer as we continue to work on our procedures manual. I'm also working with the principals, and the teachers have completed their survey, so we'll be getting the summer professional development together and published by the beginning of June. And our Orton Gillingham training for part 1 has been completed for K through 2. Some teachers are going to the 2nd level in June, and then we'll continue it on next year.
Thank you so much.
Just a question, Mary Jo, I think earlier in the year you had mentioned that at some point during the year we asked the students about classes and things that they may want added to our curriculum. Is that something that happens this time of year, or? I think we're talking about in regards to like sign language, if we wanted to add like a sign language class, what would be the interest? No, just curriculum,
Just
like
curriculum.
classes. Yeah.
So as far as student interest, generally that comes right now through the teachers.
Okay.
We don't have a formal survey for students for something like that. We'd have to, we could definitely look into it, but we're constantly, part of that strategic plan is to try and get students interested in clubs and activities and other classes, but we just haven't reached that point yet in the strategic plan.
Okay.
So, but that's a good reminder that we need to always, we have to keep that in the back of our
Okay.
minds and start working on it.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, that's, I think I'm up to recognitions. I don't know where my
You are.
agenda went. I did go, we do have students in the New Visions program. One of them is health-related careers. And they actually go out to hospitals and work and get experience there in their senior year. And they did have a debate between two different groups, the group at Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus and the group at Millard Fillmore Suburban Hospital. We have 3 students, Ariana, Marissa, and Owen, there in the program, and I went and watched the debate, and it was one of the most fun things I've done in a long time. Our students really did great in posing questions and then trying to answer the other questions in a way that it made their point the best point. Moving on to that, it was mentioned earlier that there's a dinner coming up in May, and Cindy Sadowski, who is our previous district clerk, did get recognized for all the work she did as a district clerk here for all the years. So she's going to be recognized with an award at that dinner. So I hope she's watching. Congratulations, Cindy. Probably missed the board meeting, so she's probably home pinned to it, taking notes as we speak for the minutes.
Somebody reached out to me about that, former board members that were wondering, because they were, when Cindy was on the board with Cindy, they just kind of want to be possibly included in any.
David,
that we do.
and the executive director of ECASB and I have discussed that and agreed that we should
Okay.
send out a
There's a few
formal
people that-
invitation
okay.
to former board members who were on the board when Cindy was here, and invite them to come to
Great.
the dinner as well. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to say it's my decision, but it's not.
It is,
Jane.
yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, so
Okay, no,
I
just kidding.
definitely think, as long as it's okay with everybody else, I think that we should invite former board members so that they can attend.
Or it
as
could be
well.
our +1s.
We don't get +1s.
Oh, see, I just lost. I don't have a plus. I'm trying. Can't make things work here.
Yeah.
So the next recognition, next person I'd like to have is Mr. Genestri, the principal of the high school. Please refer to him as Dr. Genestri, because Monday he did his dissertation and did I get the right name? Dissertation? Or defended it, thank you. And so therefore, we'll be changing our letterhead. Good thing we don't order in bulk and we print it every time we use it.
It's not the flashing sign outside.
It's flashing sign outside, there you go.
That's great.
We have another one, Sanny's, which is the Administrators Union for the state. They have recognized, that's Alexis Learning, but Alexis Langheyer, there it is, as the high school assistant principal of the year. So congratulations to her. So there'll be another awards dinner for that. To keep moving along with awards, the BPO and ECMEA Award for Excellence in Music Education, Miss Alicia Stuckman, has been recognized at that. So they will have a dinner, or a reception for her, followed by the BPO performance. So that's another congratulations to her for all the work she has done here. And I say all these people are working for the students. So really it's, congratulations to the students, because they're the ones who really shine, so other people are recognized. So thank you to everyone. Speaking of students and their achievements, the scholar athletes, the varsity boys basketball, this is winter because that just ended, varsity boys basketball, and I like the scholar because you go out there, you compete, but there's another aspect to it too of your education. And so they averaged the boys basketball team like a 96, the girls basketball team a 96. So I guess they're going to have a playoff game to see who won. The boys indoor track and field was 96. The girls indoor track and field was a 97. Varsity rifle was a 94. Competitive cheer was a 91. Boys swimming and diving was a 95. Varsity boys bowling was a 93. Girls bowling was a 90. Varsity girls ice hockey was so high they didn't even put a % down here. And the varsity boys ice hockey was a 91. So congratulations to all those teams. And out of curiosity, another report came out, the number of scholar athletes on each of those teams. And I don't know who did this, but there's 10 on every single one of them. I don't know if that's just someone typed the number too many times, or if that's the actual one, but this came from NISMA on their report, and they're saying there were 10 people on each one. And that's it. That's all I have for my recognition, so congratulations to the students and staff.
Definitely. Congratulations, everyone. So that brings us to recognition of guests. Do we have any guests that wish to be recognized? Okay. And then that brings us to the discussion on agenda items 12.01 through 24.13. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of the agenda items?
I did receive a couple questions about a couple of the policies, and with those questions, the one was about remote instruction. There's a policy on remote instruction and use it during snow days. So right now, this is a requirement that the state has to have a policy of, because of COVID and everything, to have what you would do, and they put snow days in this too. But it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, it's going to snow tonight and you didn't take your computer home, it's going to be remote instruction. It's where we would implement it. So we would really be looking to implement that possibly if there's an extended stay of people out, but they would still have to have their equipment and everything going home. But that just has to be part of a policy, because it has to be part of the safety plan. And so this is the first step in developing how it would be done behind the scenes. Everyone in the state has to do this one. Any other questions on that policy? Then there was another question about leave of, about just how we're referring to. If you look at many policies and how we're trying to articulate things appropriately in today's age, you see where we're switching a lot of things to their or they, using pronouns. The person questioned and asked says, well, instead of pronouns, would it be more beneficial instead of using a pronoun to use employee? This way, if we get away from pronouns, we eliminate any confusion or questions of what's being talked about. Because even with pronouns, they could be, the person felt they could be taken for one way or the other, depending on where it's used and in what sentence. And by using, let's say it's an employee, we're talking about employees, instead of saying the employee, blah, 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 there, you could just say the employee, blah, 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 the employee, and just keep using all the way through, use the proper noun all the way through. Not sure where the board is on that. What we would do, because these are first readings or second readings, we can make the modifications and move right on to the second and third readings. And when we get the changes coming from the policy from Erie 1, it actually highlights these changes, so we would be able to find them.
And would that be the same for a student?
It'd be the same for students. We would say the students instead of student, they. We just say student.
Will we continue to address that in every reading of all policies?
Yeah, so actually what we would be doing when we go over it even before it's presented for the first reading, I would try to catch all those. If I miss one, please, I won't take offense to anyone pointing it out and saying you missed one, because I know in different contracts and stuff, I think we get them all. The union thinks we get them all, and then when we go through, we go, oh, we missed one. So it's up to the board if you would like to make that change. It's a little change from how the policy committee is doing that. I see everyone nodding their heads, so there will be the changes for that coming up on the next one. I think that's all I had.
I'd like to say thank you to the American Heart Association and World Class Taekwondo for the donations that they have presented to the district in section 24.05.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm looking for my agenda again.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, then, is there a request to remove any items from our agenda? Is there a request to add any items to the agenda? Okay, then can I have a motion to approve consensus agenda items 12.01 through 25.10? Is that a, yeah, you're...
No, I'm not that way to
Can
I think he
have a
wants to be first.
Yeah, can I have a motion? Jim got it. Can I have a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 1, 6, 0, and that motion carries. And that brings us to recognition of guests. Again, is there anybody that would like to be recognized for items not on the agenda? Okay, do we need an executive session?
We do not.
All righty, then can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting? Jim, can I have a second? Sharon?
Jim, you in on this?
Discussion. Chuck's not here. All in favor? Opposed?
He's here. Nancy, I think
That motion carries.
we should
This
have had a
meeting is
discussion while he
adjourned.